Welcome to the Aspire Sports Show. I'm Tyler, and I'm going to be giving you my Week 11 waiver wire ads. So, how'd you do this week? Hopefully, good. If you didn't and you're still fighting for that playoff spot, I'm just going to give you a little brief story here. There was one year where I was 3-7, and it didn't really look like I was going to make the playoffs, but I didn't quit. I won 3 games in a row, ended up just sneaking into the playoffs. It was when David Johnson, his first year that he blew up, I added him off of waivers, ended up winning the whole thing. Okay, so it is possible. It is possible. Keep fighting. Add some of these players that we're going to tell you to add here. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and we'll answer any questions you have. So let's go ahead and get into it. And the first one here, some streaming options at the quarterback position, is going to be Teddy Bridgewater. Now, obviously, this depends. He got hurt. It depends on if he's healthy. So if he is healthy this week, he's my favorite streaming option. That's below 50%. All these are below 50% rostered. So 46% rostered. He, I believe, right now, going up against Detroit, is in a pretty good spot to be a smash play. We saw Alex Smith pass for nearly 400 yards against Detroit. So Teddy Bridgewater with those options, I think, is a really solid play this week. Next, let's go to Alex Smith himself, who passed for nearly 400 yards this week and no touchdowns. That's pretty crazy. But he did miss J.D. McKissick on a go route that he should have scored. But anyways, play Cincinnati. We just saw Big Ben dismantle this defense. This defense is pretty beaten up, got some injuries. Alex Smith, he's passing a lot of has a lot of passing attempts, so I think he's in a good spot to have a decent week, especially because I think Cincinnati can keep this game competitive the whole way through. So I think they have to pass the ball. So he's a decent streaming option right now. Definitely available, should be available in your leagues. 5% rostered. So, and let's go ahead and get to the next one, and that's going to be Jameis Winston. Now, I think if Drew Brees misses, obviously all depends on Drew Brees. If Drew Brees misses, I think Jameis jumps to the front of the list. He's in a dream matchup against Atlanta, and I think they're going to be a little bit conservative with the play calling, but I think Atlanta will be able to score points. So I think it kind of turns into a shootout. And Jameis is good. He really is. He's not bad. He obviously has proved he can get it done. So I think in this offense, he's a good streaming option if Drew Brees misses. And the next one would be Tua Tagovailoa. I think that's how you say his last name. Anyways, Denver. I'm a big believer in Tua, right? It wasn't the best game. I thought the game would be a little bit better this week, but gets Denver, who's middle of the pack against the quarterback position this year. I think is in a good spot. I believe he has good weapons around him. I think he's a decent streaming option this week. I'd probably go with the others, obviously, before him, but he's a decent streaming option, rostered in 45% of leagues. Next would be Kirk Cousins, and they have the least amount of passing attempts in the NFL this year, but I think going against Dallas next week, I think it's a good spot for him. I do expect Cook to have a pretty big game, but I think he's efficient and scores a couple of touchdowns in that game, so he's a decent streaming option for week 11 if you need someone, if you're desperate, rostered in 28% of leagues. And let's go to the next one, and that's going to be the running back position here. And these are my top ads at the running back position in order. So the first one is going to be Kalen Ballage. Now, if you're sitting pretty and you don't really need to win this week, I think Wayne Gallman is probably the better ad. But if you need to win this week, I think Kalen Ballage is your best bet. This week plays against the Jets. I don't expect Eckler to be back this week. I don't expect Eckler to be back until December. That New England game here, week 13, is when I think Eckler is the soonest he'll be back. So Kalen Ballage had 23 touches this game. I expect the same. He's going to be heavily involved in a I don't want to say very good offense, but a pretty good offense in the Los Angeles Chargers. So he's my top ad at the running back position this week. Only rostered in 19% of leagues, so might still be there. I think he's a solid RB2 as long as Eckler's out. Next would be I think it's Salvon Ahmed. I think that's how you say his name. I'm probably mispronouncing it, but I think that's how you say it. I could possibly be wrong. Let me know if I'm right or wrong in the comments below. Anyways, plays Denver next week. Was basically the bell cow in this offense. Breida does come back next week, so it's going to be interesting to see how he works into this offense. But he honestly looked pretty good this week. He has a good burst, and like I said, it's all the touches. We'll see how that works with Breida coming back, I'm not sure, but definitely one of the top ads at the running back position, only 5% rostered. Next would be obviously Wayne Gallman. He has a bye this week, though. That's the only reason why I didn't put him at the top. Because if you're a team that needs to win right now, yes, he's a really good ad, but he's not going to be able to help you win this week. So if you need to win this week, the other options first, then Gallman. But if you're in a good spot, I think Gallman's really good. I don't know if we see Freeman again this year. Honestly, I don't know if we do. He's playing really good football. Yes, the numbers haven't been great, but this is also probably the worst offensive line in football. Has 5 rushing touchdowns the past 4 weeks. That's really good. I know rushing touchdowns are hard to come by, are hard to predict, but he's getting all the work at the goal line. So I really like Wayne Gallman. If you're in a good spot, he's 100% the top ad this week. Next would be Nyheim Hines. Now, Nyheim Hines would probably be a little bit higher, but once again, I think that the other guys give you the best chance to win this week. Nyheim Hines, I think, is a solid play, especially a solid pickup, especially in PPR. Will play against Green Bay, where this game, I don't know what to really expect from Green Bay. I don't really know who they are. So this could be a game where they play really well, they play bad, but regardless, he came out, had 12 carries this past week, also had a touchdown through the air, is obviously their pass catching specialist, and I think reminds me of Sproles and probably reminds Rivers of Sproles a little bit. So he's pretty solid though. He's a really solid ad this week, only rostered in 41% of leagues. So he's a good ad and also a good plug and play this week if you need a flex player like your second running back. I honestly think he's pretty solid. So let's go into the next one, and that's going to be Devonta Booker. Now, this one is hard for me because this is a team that obviously wants to just run the football. They're very good at running the football. Obviously, as you can see, 8 carries to 16 carries this week, has 3 touchdowns the past 2 weeks, 140 rushing yards over these past 2 weeks. So he's somebody that's going to be involved. It's just this next game, I don't know how involved because they play Kansas City. Yes, I know that the Raiders did beat Kansas City, but at the same time, do we expect that to happen again? I just don't think that their defense is that good. But hey, maybe they control the clock, and what better way to control the clock than running the football with Jacobs and Devonta Freeman? They obviously have a good scheme and a good offensive line, so I think he's a decent ad this week if you need some depth at the running back position. And if anything were to happen to Jacobs, I think he's just a plug and play RB2 every single week. Let's talk about the next one here, and that's going to be Rex Burkhead. Now, this Sunday night game, he had 2 touchdowns. I don't expect that to happen each week. I would temper my expectations a little bit. He seems to be kind of like the goal line back a little bit, or red zone guy when he's involved in the passing game, also running game. Scores some touchdowns, has some touchdowns on the season, but I don't really know what to make of this backfield. I do think Damian Harris has the best outlook going forward just because he's the preferred first and second down guy between the tackles type of guy. So he's got the best role. Rex Burkhead though, if you're desperate and need a start, play Houston next week. Yeah, they play Houston, who just gave up over 200 yards on the ground. So I do think he's a decent ad if you need like a desperate flex position this week. So I wouldn't add him on waivers either. I wouldn't put a waiver claim like after waivers if you didn't get the guy you needed and just need a desperation play. He's a desperation play. Next, let's go into the receivers and another Patriot, and that's going to be Jacobi Meyers. He's at the top of my list, rostered in 48% of leagues right now. I think it should be even higher, especially in like 12 team leagues. I think he should be rostered in every single 12-man league. So I just think he's seeing plenty of opportunities. He appears to be right now Cam's favorite target. This was a tough matchup. In the slot, had Marlon Humphreys on the outside. Yes, they do have some decent corners on the outside, Marcus Peters, but at the same time, I just think he's the best option going forward in this passing attack. And Cam obviously seems to like him. Yes, it wasn't a very high passing game from Cam, but he had basically half of the receiving yards in this offense. So I think Jacoby Myers going forward is a very solid wide receiver 3, upside wide receiver 2 in this offense. And let's talk about the next one here, and that's going to be Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman, to me, he's 6 foot, I believe he's 6'4", 223 pounds or something like that. So he's a big bodied wide receiver. Philip Rivers has had Vincent Jackson, Keenan Allen, Antonio Gates throughout his career, like possession wide receivers, and I think he fits this mold. So I just think Rivers, and it kind of looked like that way when he needed a guy, a play to make a play. he gave it to Keenan, or I was going to say Keenan Allen, Michael Pittman to make that play, especially like across the middle, those kind of plays. I think this is the guy that Philip Rivers is going to kind of focus on for the remaining of the season and has a really solid schedule going forward as well. So I think he's a high priority add and on the waivers going forward, definitely make a claim for him. And the next one's going to be Jalen Reagor. I don't know exactly what happened in this game with Fulgham. I don't think he's kind of being phased out or anything, but one of my friends that's a Philadelphia fan said that he just thinks the play calling's bad. Regardless, I believe in Wentz going forward. I think this offense gets better going forward, and I want a piece of the pie. I think Reagor has potential in this offense to be their number one. So I would go out and try to get him off of the waivers right now, 26% rostered. I would go out, make a claim for him this week. If you don't want to make a claim, see if he's available after the waiver wire claims and try to pick him up. I think he's worth a end of the bench spot with some good potential going forward. Next is going to be Josh Reynolds. I also think this is a pretty good play going forward. Past 3 games, not past 3 weeks because they had a bye last week. Past 3 games, 27 targets. That's a good target share there. In 3 games. I do think he has some potential, some big potential, especially in a pretty good offense going forward as well. Maybe he kind of becomes a number one. Who knows? I'm not saying he does. I still think like Cooper Kupp and Woods are the guys, but these are also guys that have been hurt throughout their career. So maybe he kind of one of them gets hurt and he then bumps up the depth chart. So I think going forward, I do think he has pretty good potential and is increasing targets each week here. So somebody to definitely keep your eye on. I wouldn't go out and try to make a waiver claim for him, but I would possibly try to pick him up as a end of the bench spot as well, only rostered in 5% of leagues. Next, let's go to Jakeem Graham. Now, I think this is more of a deeper league ad as well, but now we don't know Preston Williams anymore, so he's like their number two. I believe in Tua, and I believe that this offense gets better, continually better. At the same time, I don't think that there's like a high ceiling with him, but I do think if you're in like a 14-team league PPR, I think he's a pretty solid ad as a flex, play 1 week if you need some help. So I would add him. I wouldn't put any waiver claims in him, but if you're in a deeper league that needs some depth, I think he's a decent ad this week. Let's go to the next one, and that's going to be Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Now, I will say this. In these games, not looking at this, from weeks 2 through 8, he scored, I believe it's 23 points. I don't know what the exact number was, but 23 points, some points. In basically one play in Jacksonville, against Jacksonville, he got that in one play. He's very hit or miss, boom or bust, and mostly it's bust. With Allen Lazard coming back this week, I really wouldn't go out there and try to put waiver claims in him for him. Really, I wouldn't. I would really temper your expectations. I would add him, but really, I honestly wouldn't even add him because I would let somebody else waste their time. I don't think he has that much potential going forward. Yes, 2 decent weeks in a row, but very fluky. It's not going to continue, so I would look elsewhere. I would go with the other guys first. And let's go into the tight end position. The first one, now tight end's just ugly, right? Let's just say that right off the bat. Tight end is always an ugly position. These are waiver wire ads. I do think Logan Thomas, though, going forward rest of the season, is a pretty solid tight end. So he's my number one. Go out and try to get him, especially if you don't have that good of a tight end situation right now. I think he's just a plug and play guy for the rest of the season. Just leave him there. He's going to have some weeks that it's not too good, but other weeks that's going to make up for it. So I think he's a solid ad this week at the tight end position. Now say he's not there in deeper leagues and you're desperate. Richard Rodgers. This is desperate, okay? There's not many players at the tight end position, okay? It wasn't that bad this week. Do I think this continues going forward? Plays Cleveland next week, who are pretty friendly against the tight ends. I'm not sure, but if you're desperate, go ahead. And last one is going to be Jordan Reed. Now, I would probably put him obviously ahead of Richard Rodgers, probably right around. I think he's even with Logan Thomas, but he's on bye this week. I really don't think we see Kittle for the rest of the season, so I think he's the tight end going forward. And I think he's a decent tight end going forward as well. So it's 6 targets, 5 catches, 62 yards. He has talent. He just hasn't stayed on the field. Is always hurt. So if you if you need him in deeper leagues, uh, sure, pick him up, put him at the end of your bench, wait for him to come back, and then play him after the bye week. But if you're in like a shallow leagues, like 10-man league, I wouldn't even consider it. But if you need some help at the tight end position after he comes back from bye, he's not a bad play. Somebody I'd keep my eye on. And let's talk about streaming defenses. The first one's going to be the Los Angeles Chargers. I think obviously against the Jets, when the Jets go to Los Angeles too, I think it's a pretty safe bet that they'll be one of the top defenses that week, rostered in 40% of leagues, so might be available. Definitely first streaming option. Next would be Washington against Cincinnati. I do think that Cincinnati will be able to put up points, but I think Washington will be able to get to Joe Burrow, possibly throws an interception or something like that. So I think that they're a decent ad at home this week. Yes, against Detroit wasn't good, but at home, I think they're a decent streaming option as well. Only rostered in 31% of leagues. And the last one's going to be Cleveland. They play Philadelphia. Carson Wentz got sacked 3 times today. Cleveland can definitely get to the quarterback, so I think maybe, extreme conditions again in Cleveland. It's been 2 weeks in a row now, their past 2 games, where it's been pretty crazy weather. So maybe it happens again, which would definitely benefit them in this game. So I think that they're a decent streaming option as well. And that does it here at Aspire Sports. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Also, if you have any other questions as to who to drop, who to add, leave it in the comments below. We'll answer any questions you have. And check out our social media. It's in the description below. We're incredibly active. We'll answer any questions you have on any of them. So thank you for watching and have a great day.